Hello, my Holocron keepers. Welcome back. Up to now, we've talked about beliefs, about hesitation, about the choices that shaped the Jedi Order. Today, we will look at what was happening while those choices were being debated. Because the Mandalorian Wars did not begin with a declaration or a single battle, they began quietly at the edges of the galaxy. So let's see what the Holocron recorded.
The Mandalorian Wars did not announce themselves. There was no declaration, no ultimatum, no single moment the galaxy could point to and say, "This is when it began." Instead, fleets began to appear in the outer rim, not in force, not in spectacle. They arrived suddenly, struck quickly, and departed just as fast. Genocide and atrocities from the Mandalorians took place. Planets like Ordo, Gargon, Shogun, and Concord Dawn were under the fist of the military machine that Mandalore the Ultimate had put in place. Cities fell before distress signals could be answered. By the time the Republic took notice, entire cultures had already been erased from the record. Among them was Cathar. When Revan arrived, the war had already moved on. The Mandalorian fleets were gone. What remained was silence, and the absence of those who had lived there. The Cathar people had not been conquered. They had been extinguished. The holocrons record no battle at Cathar, no strategic objective, no military necessity, only an outcome. Revan walked among the ruins alone. There were no survivors to question, no enemies left to confront, only evidence. Among the remains, he found a Mandalorian mask. It belonged to a woman. Her armor was damaged, not by Cathar weapons, but by Mandalorian fire. The record suggests she had turned on her own, that she had tried, too late, to stop the massacre. She failed, and so did everyone else. Revan held the mask for a long time, not as a trophy, not as a symbol of victory, but as proof. Proof that even among the Mandalorians, there had been a moment when a choice still existed, and that it had been ignored. Revan understood then what the war truly was. Not a clash of armies, not a contest of strength, but a campaign built on the assumption that no one would arrive in time to object. He placed the mask over his face. The holocrons do not record this as a vow of vengeance. They record it as an acceptance of responsibility. Revan would not remove the mask until the Mandalorians were stopped, not negotiated with, not delayed, not studied. Stopped. From that moment forward, Revan no longer acted as a member of the Jedi Order, but as a knight of the Republic. He did not ask permission. He did not seek endorsement. He left. Quietly at first. Revan spoke to other Jedi, not in the council chamber but in corridors, hangars, and half-empty temples. He did not promise victory. He did not promise survival. He showed them Cathar. He showed them the pattern, the delays, the cost of restraint measured in extinction. Some followed him because they agreed, others because they could no longer pretend they did not see. A few followed because they believed that if anyone could walk this path without losing himself completely, it was Revan. They would later be called Revanchists. At the beginning, they were simply Jedi who chose to act. The Council would name Revan a traitor, a dangerous idealist, a fracture in the Order. History would argue over those titles for generations, but the records mark Cathar as the moment when the Mandalorian Wars truly gained an answer. Not from the Republic, not from the Council, but from a Jedi who decided that waiting was no longer balance. It was complicity. And with that decision, the war entered a new phase, one it would never leave unchanged.
All right, we'll stop here for today. What Revan understood wasn't born from anger or ambition. It came from attention, from listening closely enough to realize that waiting had become a choice of its own. Next time, we'll see what happens when that understanding turns into motion, when quiet preparation becomes open defiance. and when the Jedi Order begins to feel the strain of its own restraints. Thank you for learning with me, Holocron Keepers. And remember, don't fall to the dark side. But if you do, count me in.